This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 256 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. This episode is titled, Travel Teaches Us So Much. This is like something I believe to such a high degree. It's probably the main driver behind why I love travel, want to travel more, and why I take my son travelling especially. So, I've talked a lot, actually, in previous episodes about some of the specific things, the many specific things that travel has taught me. But it's not just me. It's definitely not just me. So last year when I was writing my book about why we need to travel, I had a lot of chances to dive deeply into the academic literature. So now on my laptop, I've got a wonderful folder of PDFs of research papers. So I'm going to scroll through that and just read you some of the titles to give you a taste for I suppose, for why I know it's not just my opinion that travel teaches us a lot. So I've got papers like the educational benefits of travel experiences. And these are all, peer-reviewed academic journals, proper research kind of stuff. Travel and learning, a neglected tourism research area. I agree. And a lot of the research focuses on things like study abroad programs. So assessing the impact of business study abroad programs on personal development, crossing cultures, student travel and personal development. Here's an interesting one. Do people who travel more perform better at work? The answer, of course, is yes. I can tell you that already. Spoiler. The effect of short-term study abroad programs on students' cultural adaptability. It's another thing we learn. Learning by going. Transformative learning through long-term independent travel. Another paper titled Living Abroad Gives You a Creative Edge. Social tourism as opportunity for unplanned learning and behaviour change. I like this one. You went to Europe and returned different. Transformative learning experiences of international students in Portugal. I could go on and on and on, but I won't because I think, actually I don't know how many I have, but it probably 100 or so papers in that folder. And pretty much without exception, they all conclude that travel teaches us so much. So, of course, I also today have 3 guests who've learnt a lot from travel and agree with me. And today I'm starting off with a chat I had with Jennifer Johnston. So Jen and I actually recorded this chat a few months back while our state borders were closed. We kind of mentioned that. Basically our state borders practically still are closed in most respects, but things look like down here in Australia they are going to be opening up sooner rather than later. So that's a precursor to this chat. But Jen and I talked about some of the reasons that travel teaches us so much and some of the things that she's learnt from travel.
For me, the lessons that I've learned in travel is just how similar we all are, just in different countries. In that, when I go to a place, like I try not to just book in a hotel. Like if I can book into more of a local place or an Airbnb and then go down to the local markets and find out where people shop. So even though often if it's in a different country, I can't understand what's, going on, but you get an understanding through observation. And, it always makes me feel like they're just like us, Their kids go to school, they have pre and post activities, whether they're on the soccer field or swimming, and they're at home at night cooking, and it's just like you always think different countries, yes, they have different cultures and they'll be eating different food and doing things slightly different, but they're still just the same as us. They've got their apartment, they've got their house, they've got their car, they've got their bike. It's just slightly different, and I just love that. Mm-hmm. So I've just got this desire at some stage to go and live, abroad somewhere when the kids are older and I'm independent, so that I can actually feel what it's like to live in a different country in a different way, and not just be a visitor or not be, someone, we were mentioning living on campus for 3 or 4 months. It's not quite the same.
It's not quite the same. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what country it will be. I haven't decided that yet.
It might be several, Jen.
It might be several. Yeah, and it might allow me to learn a new language as well, because I'm not fluent in anything. I just take a phrase book with me and try and just converse, but I feel awkward. And I don't have enough. So I just thought if I lived in a country and made myself learn the language through, school beforehand or while I'm there, correspondence. But yeah, part of me just it's just the opening up and it's like opportunities everywhere. And at the moment, because we can't travel internationally, I'm finding I'm doing the same thing when I'm travelling locally. Observing the main street, what they've got. And you don't have to worry about changing language over here. But just I love the lifestyle of being somewhere different that's not you're known, so every time you step out the door there's an opportunity to take a different path and to walk differently, drive differently if you do have a car, try different places to eat. I don't know, maybe it's because I feel like I'm on holidays, but you tend to smile at people walking past you. They probably think, oh, who's
that crazy person? No, do it. Keep smiling at them. Oh, yeah, I mean, 100%. I completely understand that feeling of the curiosity of seeing how other people live, and that realization we often have that we are all so similar in so many ways. And I think that's, I don't know, it's just such an allure of travel to go and see what are those differences and what are the similarities. It's a beautiful part of travelling. And I would very much encourage you to go and spend an extended time living somewhere, because it is different. And it's wonderful.
It is wonderful. And, when you were just describing that, I remember walking, I think it was in Breda. I had a friend in the Netherlands who was over there lecturing or something, stayed with her. So I'd go out, and walk around the streets. And that was one thing that I found different is, I don't know if it's all over the Netherlands, but they don't close their curtains.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something else, other people notice, but it's almost like they're inviting you to look into their lounge rooms. It's
wonderful.
Really bizarre. Yeah, just a quirky little observation, because, here we're always closing our blinds, and maybe it's because it's hot and, sunny. But over there, I would just love walking the streets and just being able to see into people's lounge room. And this is at night time.
Yeah. And see how they're living their evenings out and what they're up to.
Yeah.
I love that too. Yeah.
Not being, too voyeuristic or anything.
No. Just in passing.
Just in passing.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. I think we have the same intense need for learning and general curiosity, and it's just nice to, I don't know. I just really miss that part of travel.
Yeah.
And I've done the same, and within Western Australia found new places, but it's not quite the same because there's no language barrier, there's not much cultural difference, but it's still I think you're right. I'm heightened to looking for those differences and similarities now because it's as far as we can go. But
yeah, I mean we've got immense gratitude for where we can go right now.
Absolutely,
and the beauty on our doorstep. I mean, Western Australia, Queensland, all the other states have the most stunning places, and we are discovering them, and I think that's a beautiful thing. But there is something about that language difference and the cultural side of things that you just like. But
Can't wait.
Oh boy, when we get back there, we're going to be bursting out of our box.
Oh,
I guess.
Absolutely. We will love it even more than we ever loved it before. So, yeah. I don't want to sound like a creepy voyeur either, but I have to say one of my favourite hotel experiences, I was staying in Penang, where I could, from my hotel window, we were based in one hotel for a whole fortnight, which was quite delightful. And from that room, we could see into the backyards of several pretty flash houses on Penang. and I really got to know what the people there were doing and how they were living their lives. And I guess I probably shouldn't have looked so hard, but they were just there. They would know that people from the hotel could see them. I love, experiencing things that way as well. Of course, even better to get to know them rather than just be staring. But that Jen's comment about looking into lounge room windows at night in the Netherlands made me think of that. Now, my next guest today is Carolanna Lisonbee, and like many people, and me included, she went abroad to teach English, and it really changed her. And I mean, absolutely the same for me. I'm sure I would be an entirely different person if I hadn't taken that step. And it's really interesting to hear Carolanna's story.
As I mentioned, I am shy, but I used to be much, much worse. Like all throughout growing up, all throughout grade school and into college, I was almost beyond shy. I was like pathologically scared of talking to people. And what I was scared of is that I would say something dumb. Everyone thought I was smart because I got good grades. The teachers loved me. I was always quiet and obedient. So everyone thought I was smart, and I was just terrified, constantly terrified that if I said something dumb, everyone would realize that they were completely wrong about me.
Yep.
So I had zero confidence in myself, and I wouldn't interview for jobs. I wouldn't ask teachers for help if I didn't understand something. It was actually a huge problem. But I really, really wanted to travel. I grew up in a very small town, kind of away from everything, and I was reading about foreign places, reading National Geographic cover to cover. I wanted to travel so much. So when I was in my mid-20s, I'd been telling people for years that I wanted to get a job teaching in China because I'd taken Chinese in high school. And so my sister brought me this job advertisement and was like, hey, why don't you just apply for this job? And I was like, sure, I'll apply for it. I just quit a job that I absolutely hated, and so I was looking for something new, and I did not think I would get it. That was part of my complete lack of confidence. But I applied for it, and I actually got hired for it, for teaching at a preschool in China.
Oh, cool.
And then I got on the plane, and I was like, is this really happening? Like, the moment I got on the plane was when I was like, I guess this is real. And I got to China. It was a big city in the northeast called Shenyang. And I got off the plane and looked around. And as I mentioned, I'd studied Chinese, but I didn't understand anything anyone was saying. And I was like, I thought I knew a little bit of Chinese. And then I went to the restroom, and it was a squat toilet, first squat toilet I'd ever seen in my life. And I was like, what the heck am I doing here?
I know, they're quite confronting the first time, aren't they?
But anyway, I started my job, and I'd never taught children before that. And I had a class of 26 kids, and I had 2 Chinese co-teachers. And so they would teach the regular lessons, and then I would teach the half-hour English lesson, and then I'd go to other schools to teach English lessons in the afternoon. And for the first about month, I was just like completely overwhelmed. Like I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I might just have to hop on a plane back to the U.S. But I found that I'm a lot more comfortable talking to small children than I am talking to adults.
Oh, interesting.
And I learned how to be silly with them and make them laugh and play with them. And also, I did make a lot of mistakes, and I got lost several times. But what I learned from all this is that making mistakes and humiliating yourself is not actually fatal. And that gave me more confidence in myself than I'd ever had before. And I was able to speak up for myself and voice my opinions more than I ever had before. And I got used to the dialect, which the Northeast dialect is a bit different than the standard Mandarin dialect I'd learned in my class. So once I got used to the dialect, I was able to understand a lot more people. And actually, the most affirming moment of my life was when I was walking to the mall street, and I was halfway there and realized I'd left my Chinese to English dictionary at home and wasn't scared. I was just like, well, I guess I'm just going to get by with the Chinese that I know then.
Oh, that's awesome. And did this confidence last beyond, I mean, obviously it did, but the confidence then lasted beyond just when you were in China?
Yes. And a lot of that is like, I know that I can take care of myself. I know I can survive in a foreign country. Also, I speak Chinese now, and so
that's amazing.
So I don't have to worry that I'm not smart because, hey, that takes a lot of dedication to learn something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I love traveling. It is one of my favorite things in life. And the places that I've been, the places I've traveled to, and the places I've learned about have kind of become part of me, part of my identity. And just having that inside me gives me confidence.
I think Carolanna has a really special way with words. I know that several of the things she said in this chat will probably become Instagram quotes on my Instagram account because, well, actually it's no surprise. She's also a poet, which you'll hear more at the end of the episode. But my own experience moving to Japan to teach English, and I also got to teach young kids, and I was quite shy, not really, pretty shy, not super extremely shy, but that experience certainly changed me, and I think fundamentally changed my personality or how I got along with people and expressed myself. So yeah, I really related a lot to what Carolanna said about what travel had taught her. So my final guest today is Kate Peterson, and she has another interesting take on what travel can teach you.
I think my number one thing that travel has taught me is probably a lot of people's answer, but I feel like there's another little twist to it that I have learned. So I really believe that nothing does a better job of teaching you about yourself than travel, right? But I also think that nothing does a better job teaching you about your own culture than travel as well. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people don't think about, that like in my case, I'm going to learn a ton about America by going to another place. But I think it's absolutely true because it's often really hard to describe your own culture, right? I mean, everything, it seems so normal to you. It's what you grew up in. And I think it's often through contrast that we're able to more clearly define ourselves. So when you go to a place that's so different from where you're from and you encounter people who are so different from you, you're able to realize what you're not much more clearly. And that leads to a clearer sense of who you are. So my favorite example of this was when I was in college, I had the chance to study abroad in France. And
Nice.
I come from a relatively small town in the American West where pretty much everyone that you meet on the street, you're going to make eye contact and say hello and maybe say, how are you? And even right down to like, if you're driving past somebody on a dirt road, you sort of do the finger wave, where you've got your hands on the steering wheel and you both sort of lift up your fingers. Like greeting strangers is just sort of a thing where I'm from.
Right.
And I'd really never thought anything of it.
Normal.
Until I was, yes, exactly. Until I was just bouncing down the street in Marseille, France, saying bonjour to everyone, comment allez-vous? And I'm, of course, wearing these like super bright, like neon clothes, right? Because I've never figured out how to blend in. And I have no idea how to do this in Europe because I'm 20 and I've never lived anywhere else in the world. And of course, naturally, people looked at me like I was out of my gourd, right? And I had never even thought about it. But it's true. It really is the norm where I come from. And I think that experience really taught me that I actually really like that about where I'm from. And it's sort of a part of who I am. And, I make an effort to not greet people crazily when I'm in a place that's not normal now. But I really do like that about myself. And I don't think I would have learned that had I not been in a place where that was normal or wasn't normal, rather.
Oh, it's such a good example. It's a simple thing that you don't realize is unusual until you are moved elsewhere.
Bouncing down the street.
Yeah, well, bouncing down the street in Marseille, exactly. But you're exactly right. Like that, the contrasts help you learn so many different things about yourself, and then you kind of get to choose which bits you like and which bits you want to change. So
yeah, absolutely. And I've also found that places kind of bring out a different side of you too, in addition to teaching you about your own culture. But I feel like being in a certain place can make you feel a certain way that you might not have seen coming. We had the chance to travel to Cartagena in Colombia, which is an amazing place. I just absolutely loved it. And before we went, we had been dealing with a fairly significant sort of family health crisis where my father was in the hospital, and it was the kind of thing where everyone was really stressed and there were a lot of calls with doctors and so on and so forth. And, you know, once we'd had this vacation planned for a long time, and once my dad was settled and everything was good there, then there was this vacation that we were going to take. So we decided to go. And when we got there, I don't know if it was the place itself or just how exhausted I was from like everything we'd just been through. I just want to win it every single day. And this is so out of character for me. But like there's this rhythm to the place there because while we were there, it was so hot and humid. Mm-hmm. So you fall in this rhythm of like you wake up in the morning and you drink some amazing coffee because Colombia has some of the world's best coffee. And then you wander around the city before it gets too hot. And when it gets too hot, you go swimming and you take a nap. And then eventually you kind of like emerge for food again, you know. But normally I'm that person who like plans out everything we're going to do. And I've researched the restaurants ahead of time. And on that trip, I found myself kind of just winging it and ducking into whatever little restaurant looked great and not worrying about it so much. And honestly, sometimes I kind of miss my Colombia self because it was really fun. But I think now that I've like been there and kind of sort of tasted that sense in myself, I can bring that into my everyday life, you know, when I want to, now that I've seen that happen.
And you know, it's possible, you know, you can be different when you want to be or when the circumstances are right. Yeah. So yeah, you're kind of able to broaden your possibilities and choose what's right at that moment. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. And I think places bring that out in you, you know, whether it's adventurousness or a sociability that's not normally there or the ability to toss the rule book out the window, whatever it is.
Kate's so right that seeing the contrasts between your own culture and the one you're travelling in is such a good way to teach you more about your own ways of life and the own uniqueness about where you live and how you've been brought up and the culture around you. I really love that approach. So something good to ponder and think about, I think. So, yeah. So that's it for episode 256 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I hope that it gives you pause for thought to think about some of the things that travel has taught you as well. I'd love to hear about some of them. So come and join us somewhere. On Facebook, you can find the Facebook group for Thoughtful Travellers. Just by searching for Thoughtful Travellers, you'll find us there. Make sure you're searching for Thoughtful Travellers with 2 L's, the British/Australian spelling way, and you'll find us there. And in LinkedIn, we also have a group now, also called Thoughtful Travellers, but the easiest way to find it is to use my short link, which is notaballerina.com/LinkedIn. It'd be great to see you there as well. A big shout out and a huge thank you to my guests for sharing their stories. First up, I chatted with Jennifer Johnston, and you can find more about Jen and some of her stories at her blog, travelbugwithin.com.au. Then chatted with Carolanna Lisonbee, and she has a poetry collection out on Amazon called Wisp of Fog Moment, and I'll leave the link in the show notes so you can have a look at that. And finally, I chatted with Kate Peterson, and she's an artist, a very talented artist, I think, and I love her style. And you can find more of her work at katepeterson.art. She's actually just got a new book out, which is a travel journal. It's called Around the World and Back Again. And it's both beautiful and kind of, sparks your creativity. It's a just gorgeous looking thing. So have a look at that. Now, these links and more will be in the show notes. For this episode, the show notes are at notaballerina.com/256. And I also mentioned putting quotes on Instagram. So if you don't follow me on Instagram yet, come and have a look. My Instagram username is Amanda Kendall. Don't forget, Kendall is Kendle, a little bit unusual. All right. So I would love to hear more about what travel has taught you. Come and tell me somewhere. And otherwise, until next time, thanks so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.